Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bible class. We are here studying the Sermon on the Mount, and we're going to take a good chunk of Matthew 7 today. We're going to look at this section here, a tree and its fruit. I wasn't sure how I wanted to divide it, so I'm just going to look at all 6 verses, which I think is a record for this class, but that's where we are. Beware of false prophets, it says, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them. All right, so we have this passage, and Jesus is saying, beware of false prophets. And it makes sense. There's a broad way which leads to destruction, right? And many there be which go in thereat. Straight is the gate, narrow is the way which leads to life. So Jesus is warning us, don't go in at that broad, don't enter through the wide gate and the broad way, because that's going to lead you to destruction. Well, how are you going to get there? Now, beware of false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they're ravening wolves. So a few things here. False prophets, what are they going to do? Well, first of all, he uses the illustration of sheep and wolves. So you have a flock, and the scriptures call the church a flock in other places. Like, for example, in Acts chapter 20, go to verse 28, Paul tells the elders of the church of Ephesus, take heed therefore unto yourselves and to all the flock, over which the Holy Spirit hath made you overseers, to feed the church of God, which he hath purchased with his own blood. But look at the next verse. For I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you, not sparing the flock. Well, who are the wolves? False prophets. Also of your own selves shall men arise, speaking perverse things, to draw away disciples after them. So Paul is saying there's going to be people, and he's speaking to the Ephesian elders. So there are going to be people who come in. They're going to enter in among you, and they're going to wreak havoc. Or there's going to be people from your own group who are going to arise, and they're going to try to teach things that are perverse, and they're going to try to draw disciples away. And the imagery that he uses here, false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravening wolves. It's a picture. And the idea is you have a flock of sheep, and the sheep know when they see a wolf to be afraid. They run, whatever they're going to do, they'll know that the wolf is coming. But if the wolf comes dressed as sheep, he can get right among them because they don't notice that he is a wolf. They don't notice that he's coming there to destroy, to kill, to steal, or whatever. Instead, they're going to let him in, and it's going to be easy. So Jesus says you have to beware of these, and you have to be looking for people who come into the congregation, come into the flock, that are trying to pull people away from following the truth. This certainly happened. It happened in Corinth. It was predicted to happen in Ephesus, and I'm sure that it did. In fact, if you look over in Revelation chapter 2, we know that people tried, right? To the angel of the church of Ephesus. And this is after they had lost their first love, or left their first love. But look at this. They still it says, I know your works and your labor and your patience, and how you can't bear them which are evil, and you have tried them which say they are apostles and are not, and have found them liars. So the Ephesian congregation was very diligent. Yes, they had left their first love, and that was bad, but they were very diligent. And he says, this thou hatest the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. So it's a sect, a group of people who weren't teaching the right things. So he tells Ephesus, you do have some good things. You're avoiding false teaching. You just need to find that passion, find that love that you used to have. But anyway, the Ephesian congregation, when Paul told them earlier there's going to be wolves coming in, they listened to that, and it says they tried them, they tested them rather, and they found them to be liars. They say they're apostles, but they're not. And there were ways to test that. So we go back to Matthew 7, sheep or false prophets coming in dressing like sheep, but instead they're ravening wolves. They're coming to destroy, they're coming to hurt. How do you know them? Well, he uses a different picture now. Jesus liked to stack the imagery on top of each other. So here you have wolves coming into a flock, and then he switches to a garden or an orchard rather. You shall know them by their fruits. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every tree brings forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree brings forth evil fruit. Good tree can't bring forth evil fruit. Corrupt tree can't bring forth good fruit. Every tree that does not bring forth good fruit, cut down, cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them. So what is he saying here? He's saying, look at and see when you're looking for people, look and see what follows. Look and see the results of people's actions. Because somebody who is a false teacher, they're not going to get the right results. In 2 Peter chapter 2, there's false prophets among the people of old, he's talking about, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily, secretly, those are the wolves in sheep's clothing, they shall bring in damnable heresies, even destroying the Lord that brought them, and they shall bring upon themselves swift destruction. Many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. So what is the result of these false teachers? Well, they're going to come in, they're going to privately come in, secretly come in, and it's going to cause people to speak badly of the truth. You're also going to see motivation here, and it says here, through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you. So their feigned words are, what's a good way of it? Well, let's just see if another translation has, and in their greed they will exploit you with false words. Feigned is the idea of, actually, I want to look at plastois. Now, there's an interesting word. We look at this in here, through covetousness shall they with plastic words, plastois, molded, that is, by implication, artificial or fictitious, false, feigned. Plastic. We know plastic as, well, like this pen is plastic. It's a material, but I think the reason behind the name, it used to be, and it actually still is, it's a word which describes it describes a state of being, a state of the material. Something that is plastic is something that you can form, you can mold. And, well, plastic, it's hard. It's hard now, but if I heat this up, what happens to it? If I get it hot, it becomes soft, moldable. Now you can do that with metal too. You get iron and you put it in a furnace or something, and pound the you'll be able to hammer the iron out, or if you get it even hot enough, it turns into liquid and you can mold it and stuff. Pretty much anything has that property, but with plastic, it it's moldable much quicker, much easier. You don't need to bring it to as high of a temperature. So plastic is very easy to mold. And now we have things like 3D printers, which can, it takes plastic and it takes material and it prints something, some sort of design that you make. It's quite amazing. But this word plastos, molded, and through covetousness shall they with artificial words, molded words. What are they doing? They're purposely designing these words to trick. They have a use for these words, and they're making the words, they're making the way that they speak as useful as they can to fulfill their goals. Now, we should all be careful of what we say, but what he's talking about here is people coming in and they're giving their speeches, and their speech is designed to draw people away from what the scriptures say and change their mind. And you can do this. There are ways to trick people. There are ways to draw them away. Covetousness, and through covetousness shall they with feigned words, and look at this, they'll make merchandise of you. So think back to Matthew chapter 7. Jesus says, you will know them by their fruits. So what are their fruits? Well, here you have teachers coming in, and they're only coming in to make money. They want money. Do they want to help you get to heaven? Well, no, they're not trying to do that. Do they care about your soul in any way? No. Do they want you to live a moral life? No. They're not trying to help. They're not trying to, and the Bible does say it's okay to support a minister, or pay a teacher or a minister, or even elders. It's a scriptural thing, but that's because they're spending their lives caring for the flock, caring for people, and teaching the word. But these people, they're not trying to further the congregation. They're not trying to further the individual. Instead, what are they doing? Well, they're covetous. They want more for themselves. If we go down here, he's talking about them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness. These, as, let's see, down here in verse 4, having eyes full of adultery. They can't cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls. A heart they have exercised with covetous practices, cursed children. So and here we go here again. When they speak great swelling words of vanity, they allure through the lusts of the flesh. Through much wantonness, those that were clean escaped from them who live in error. And while they promise liberty, they themselves are the servants of corruption, for of whom a man is overcome, of the same is he brought in bondage. So the picture you have, 2 Peter, and I know I'm getting off of my, the subject in Matthew 7, but this is when Jesus says you will know them by their fruits. These are the fruits. So you have teachers coming in, and look what it says here. They promise liberty. They promise liberty. So a false teacher comes in, what's he going to say? You've been told that you don't need to do these things, that you need to be restrictive on these things, but that's all a lie. You actually get to do a whole lot more than you've been told. That's what a false teacher is going to do. He's going to come in and try to loosen things up a little bit. Who was the very first false teacher? Well, go over to Genesis chapter 3. The serpent, more subtle than any beast of the field. Hasn't God said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden, he asks. The woman says to the serpent, yeah, we can eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but we can't eat of the tree in the middle. Because God said, don't eat of it, don't touch it, you'll die if you do. What's the serpent say? You shall not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. The devil essentially trying to convince Eve that God only wants man, or that God is trying to hold man back, mankind, which only consisted really of Adam and Eve. There were only two humans there. So mankind consists of Adam and Eve. So God's trying to hold you back. He doesn't want you to be like him, knowing good and evil. God knows that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened. And interestingly enough, this is a lie. You shall not surely die. But he's telling a lot of truth here because their eyes were open there in verse 7. And what did Satan do? He drew them away according to their lusts. He wanted to get them to fulfill their lusts. And what he was saying was, you have more freedom than God is allowing. You should have more freedom than God is allowing. God just doesn't want you. He's just protecting his own status, right? He's protecting his own status. He doesn't want you to reach his status. He wants to keep you down. Be careful when somebody comes along trying to say, well, this person's only trying to keep you down. That's what the false teachers do, right? They come in and they try to promise all of this liberty. And what does it turn you into? Well, it turns you into a slave of corruption. So be careful about the false teachers. Let's full circle this back to where we were in Matthew 7. Beware. So you'll know them by their fruits. What is this going to lead people to do? Is the teaching going to cause people to do things that are against what the scripture says? You'll know them by their fruits. Is the teaching trying to loosen things, trying to allow things that are impermissible? You'll know them by their fruits. Is the teaching designed so that the teacher is going to live is going to trick the people into giving him all kinds of things that he doesn't deserve? Well, you'll know them by their fruits. A good tree brings good fruit. A corrupt tree, evil fruit. The tree that brings forth the bad fruit or doesn't bring forth the good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Like 2 Peter 2 said, their condemnation doesn't rest. They will eventually reach that conversation. So Paul warned the Ephesian elders, said, be careful about grievous wolves. Jesus, he's the one that defined what that is. False prophets coming in among you. They look like sheep, but they're really trying to destroy. They have a motive that's different from the well-being of the congregation, and they're pursuing that motive. Maybe they want followers. They're going to lead. That's what it says in Acts 20. They're trying to lead people away. They're trying to gather their own followers instead of people instead of gathering people to follow Christ. Paul addressed this in First Corinthians chapter 1, where he says, was, some people follow Paul, some Peter, some Apollos, some Christ. Was Paul crucified for you? No, what does he say in First Peter 1? If you glory, glory in the Lord. So don't follow these. And we need to beware of the people like this. By their fruits you shall know them. They may have really good words. They may be personable. Of course, a false teacher so often is going to be likable, personable, but you're going to know them by their fruits. And the fruit is, do they encourage, and does their teaching lead to people submitting to God? Or are they trying to say, well, you've been restricted all this time. God's just trying to put you down. The church is just trying to put you down. The elders are just trying to put you down. Don't listen to people who bring that story. Instead, follow what the scriptures say and beware these people. Well, this is all I have for today. 6 verses, and I spent more time in other verses. So, I spent more time in 2 Peter, I think, than Matthew 7. But the study of false teachers, there's a lot in the scriptures about this. Jesus gives this warning. Look at their fruit. All right, we're going to, next time, we'll look at Matthew 7:21 through 23. We have to get these sections here. They say pretty much one thing. We're going to look at these 3 verses next, and we're almost done. Look at this. We're almost done with the chapter. So we'll have to come up with something else to teach when we finish this. Thank you so much for paying attention. Thank you so much for coming with me through these 3 great chapters. It's been a while. We've had a lot of classes, and I wish you a blessed time.